Kia ora and welcome back to Whakarongo, the podcast representing the voices of thousands of rangatahi in state care. My name is Sydney Ann, and after marching to Parliament last year, calling on the government to uphold 6 promises relating to our basic rights, this year we're talking to the young people affected by those promises being broken. The 6th is a promise made to Isabella Kenney.
You promised to listen to me.
Bella always felt like she wasn't heard or listened to while she was in care, and she says she was never part of any discussion or decision involving her, even though it was about her and her future. Now as a mother herself, she understands the importance of including her child's wishes even more. Kia ora Bella, thank you for joining us and sharing your story. I wanted to start off by asking about what your experience was like in care.
I went into care when I was 3 years old. With all my siblings, but placed in homes with one of my younger brothers. And in the time of between 3 years and 18 years of age, I lived in 13 different homes.
Do you have any memories of when you were 3 going into care? Did you have any understanding about what was happening?
Sort of, because Oranga tamariki had involvement with my parents even while my mum was pregnant with me. So they were kind of behind the scenes while I was growing up to the age of 3 anyway. And obviously in their investigation processes, my parents would try and tell me not to be honest about things and stuff like that.
Why did you move so much? Did you ever get told why you were moving so much?
Majority of the time I was told that we were being moved around because me and my brother were too hard to deal with. My brother had some pretty complex needs, and I was classed as a high emotional child.
Just seems mad, kind of wild to me that you're moving so much and it's told, is that the only thing you were told is because it's your fault, essentially, that
Pretty much, yeah.
And were you ever given a choice on just a conversation? Was there ever a conversation that was had where someone's asking you what you wanted?
Only when I got to the age of about 15, and I was being moved from a foster home to a home for life placement. The option of moving and being separated from my brother wasn't given to me, but the option of staying with this lady based on what they could see was given. And the placement broke down pretty quick, but they still decided to move me there.
Well, actually, that's something I want to ask you. Is you don't have to talk about every experience moving, but what was your experience with finding out that you were going to move? What was that process like for you more commonly? How did you find out you had to move?
I think you got used to it, in time. I could count on one hand how many people I felt comfortable to be open with and stuff while I was in care. And so I wouldn't really get attached to people and would just get used to the fact that I was moving on to somebody else. Yeah. But I struggled a lot when they told me that I was being separated from my brother.
So when did you and your brother get separated?
So I would have been roughly 15.
Okay. So for me, how I would find out that I was moving, there's one particular instance that stays in my head. It's just coming home from school, and I was not I would say I was a naughty kid at all. I was terrified of being kicked out, so I was I've got to be perfect. But I came home from school and the family were oh, our grandma is really sick, she needs to come stay in our spare room, and you have the spare room, so you're going to move. And so I was told with 2 weeks notice that I was moving. And I was so upset. But then what made it worse is I actually knew that family from outside of my care placement, and their grandma never came to stay with them. So it was just a lie that they used to get rid of me. So how were you told? Would you come home from school and you'd be told, or would you get a visit from your social worker? Or
Yeah, I remember getting visits from social workers and them dropping it on me. And I remember coming home one day actually to a specific house, and some of our belongings had already been packed.
Oh.
And the caregiver explained that it was because me and my brother were going to be shifting.
What would you say the impact of that kind of growing up in that environment is where you just never know when someone's going to turn around and be like, oh, time to move. Like, what would you say that impact has been on you as an adult?
You know, it gave a lot of insecurities. When I first transitioned from care to independence, I was pretty much in fear of not actually knowing if I'd cope on my own, or whether I would essentially have to try and keep moving around, changing jobs and things to actually feel like I was living a normal life. It was quite an adjustment to actually go, okay, no, it's actually more normal to settle down somewhere.
Yeah. How old were you when you became a mama?
So I was 20.
Yeah. Those 2 years between transitioning out of care at 18 and then becoming a mum at 20, like what kind of things did you have to put in place for yourself to feel stable and secure and like you're ready, you know, to be on your own and be a mum?
To be honest, I don't think anything I really tried to do actually prepared me. I thought I was prepared, but once I actually became a mum, things were pretty different, and I began to realize that it's actually like this cycle that majority of the time there's heaps of stuff that is out of your control. Obviously, after being in care, you know, that's something I was used to, but definitely like pretty different when it comes to your own child. And you've got to sit there and go, oh, okay, I'm not just thinking about myself anymore. I need to make sure that I think about this little person, and any single decision I make could affect them.
Hearing you saying things like it's not just about you, the decisions you make is no longer just about you, it impacts your daughter. But like, it just makes me be like, but where was that thought from anyone making decisions about you? Because it's not just a decision that they made because, like in an office or in a home, like it actually impacted children, it impacted you and your brother. And yeah, it makes me like a little bit sad for you that like, where was that care that you have for your daughter? Did people ever take the time to explain things to you in ways that you would have understood?
Majority of the time, it would never be attempted. We would just be told basically what was happening, and that would be, yeah.
You mentioned that your brother had some complex needs, and then you said an emotional child? Was that what they said to you? So was any support given for you or your brother to help with those issues that you would have had?
Because I was also having physical effects from a lot of the trauma and stress I was exposed to, it was kind of like essential that they gave treatment or some sort of care for it. And they got me into therapy at 6 years of age.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, basically right through until I would say around the time me and my brother were separated. So it was quite a long time, a couple of different therapists, but
yeah. And do you think it was a good thing for you?
When I think about it now, it has to have helped in ways. Otherwise, I don't really know how I could have got through what I did. But at the same time, I think about it now and it just seems like I'd go there and draw pictures.
Yeah.
Because I was a child, you know, I wasn't going to sit there and always open up about my feelings and stuff. So it would just turn into actually more just craft.
I mean, you said you had a couple of different therapists, which you'd expect, right, over a span of, what, a decade? Around a decade of care, of therapy, sorry. But, like, it's sad to me that sounds like your most stable placement was actually going to the therapist.
It actually was for many years of my life, because one of them was involved, I think, for, say, I don't know, over half of that time, at least. That time in total that I was in therapy. She was invited later on back to my final FGC to see if she could even give advice to my 18-year-old self.
Yeah. Was that nice seeing her again?
She was invited, but unfortunately she couldn't make it.
Okay.
So I haven't seen her again, like ever again since, but
Do you think she was like a good adult for you in your childhood?
definitely, yeah. Yeah, I think it was something that I used to look forward to every week instead of seeing it as something that I had to go and do as a punishment because I was such a emotional child.
Sometimes I think that when we're younger, we can't always see the benefit of stuff because it's more subtle and people aren't always, how do you explain to a 6-year-old, like, oh, do this therapy because when you're older, like, it'll show you that you could trust some people. Like, that's not always going to help. But yeah, it's awesome to see that you did have someone that helped you feel stable and secure. Did she ever try and explain to you, like, what was happening or why you felt this way?
In some scenarios, yes. From day dot, I was the main child out of all my siblings who were put into care that keep requesting and questioning why or when we were going back to my parents.
You mentioned you're in care with your brother. Does that mean you were split from your wider siblings?
Yes, yeah.
So how many of you are there?
At the time I was put into care, they removed my 2 youngest siblings that are twins, so they were put together. I've got a sister who was born before them. She was put by herself. Me and my brother together, and 2 of my older siblings together, a sister and a brother.
So 7.
And all at once.
So you've got the twins together, your sister by herself, you and your brother, and then the other 2 together. So you've got a family of 7 kids that are all in 4 placements.
Yeah.
Did you get to see your other siblings that were not placed with you?
To an extent, the ones that were put in foster homes, yes, like care homes, but the 3 youngest ones, like the twins and my sister who was on her own, were placed in home for life placements from day dot, and they had different kind of regulations and stuff around what sort of relationships they were going to have with us.
And so that you didn't get to see them that much? Those
Not as often, no.
In a year, like how often do you think you would have seen your younger siblings?
So over time, they agreed through the family courts that we would have 4 visits a year with all the siblings together.
Oh, so it's 4 times a year.
4 times a year.
From you're 3 years old, and 4 times a year you're allowed to see your siblings.
Yeah.
It makes me so mad. It makes me, I'm sad.
I've seen my older siblings because we were forced to see my parents weekly.
Not a good experience for you?
Not really. I don't believe that a child should be forced to see someone if they don't.
Well, if you're feeling unsafe.
Yeah, you know, if they don't feel they need to.
Yeah.
Even if the title of that child is a parent, a guardian, you know.
Well, I feel like that's also not listening to you, right? Like at 3 years old, like even if you're super verbal and are able to talk at 3, like some 3-year-olds, like you can barely understand what they're saying, right? Or they don't have the ability to say, I'm actually feeling really stressed when you make me go see my mum and dad or whatever. Like they don't really have that ability. Maybe some 3-year-olds. But like to not read your behavior or what you are able to say is, I think, another way of not listening to you. Because no doubt if you didn't want to go, you would have exhibited some sort of behavior. Like you think of your daughter, right, at 3 years old. Imagine she's scared of someone or really doesn't want to see someone, even if she can't tell you with her words, which she would be vocal, but like you can pick up on things, right, as a mum.
Emotions and things.
Yeah, like crying more, tantrums, maybe wetting herself more, depending on like the level of fear.
And I did have show many signs like that. And I was quite a vocal kid.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the reason why they classed me as, you know, like a high needs sort of child.
Oh, because you're just telling them.
Yeah, like, you know, I'd always be honest about anything that happened, and like,
and they're like, well, I can't deal with these feelings.
Yeah, like I'd do it at probably sometimes the most inappropriate time, but I was a child who would go, I have to be honest, I can't hide this.
Yeah.
and I would just tell someone, like, on the spot, you know.
3? You're not even a child. Like, I would say 3, you're still a baby.
And they would, like, only send us to McDonald's to see my parents every week, and I would vomit at every access, if not after.
Yeah.
From the anxiety of it.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
And
they were like, why is she constantly being sick?
I wonder why. Like, was it ever a point where, like, you think that just constantly not being listened to, that as an adult you can look back and see the consequences of that in your own life?
For sure. Especially when becoming a mum, I just, it took me quite a long time to believe in the fact that I do have a voice, that I don't just, have entitlement to use for myself, but for my own daughter. And struggle to make decisions to this day because I've just had next to no practice doing it,
like just made them for you.
I mean, if you don't know something, you don't know it.
Yeah. And you're quite a good advocate for your daughter. Hey, I've seen you advocate for Amelia. And do you think, I guess I'm not a parent, so I would assume a lot of that comes just naturally as like a mum, you want to advocate for your child. But do you think that some of that also is driven from your lack of support as a child yourself?
Definitely, yeah. I think it is a bit of both. Like, I was always sort of someone that would just stand back, wouldn't really use my voice because I was used to just being turned away and shut off. But yeah, as soon as I became a mum, I just had this like thing in me that flipped like a light switch, and it was just like, no, not anymore.
You do a great job. Amelia is a fantastic child, and I think that's a reflection on you as a parent, that she's so confident and sure of herself, and like she's an amazing kid. I love Amelia. She's so sweet. I'm talking to her mum. Her mum obviously loves her too. Do you remember like ages ago, well, not ages ago, but like probably last year before, I can't remember, there was all that stuff in the media that was like kids in YJ who are like going on the roof of the facilities and stuff, and a lot of the media was all like, these naughty kids, or some of them like calling them young adults, all that kind of stuff, and they're actually children. But when it came out that she just weren't being heard, do you think that sometimes the general public and the media and stuff don't understand like how just like being in care, not being heard, not being listened to, not being explained stuff, they don't understand like that. Then we sometimes are going to be naughty. We sometimes are going to lash out. We will do actions that the public don't understand. Like, do you think you ever had a behavior where you were like, you just lashed out to be like, why is no one listening to me?
Because I had no one in my home life that I could express myself to, or social workers, etc., that I could trust. I would go to school and I would tell my whole class about it, my teachers about it, and it would really affect students around me.
Yeah.
And like they would have no idea what I was referring to, and I imagine some of it would have been quite explicit at times.
And quite traumatic for them.
Yeah. To hear things that other children should not know.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. But then I hate that then that's made, like, you're then kind of made to be the naughty one.
Yeah, because I was talking to the wrong people at the wrong times.
But you're a kid, and like, you have no power, and you have no control, and you have no one you trust. And so what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, pretty much.
What would you say or hope that social workers do now to make the young people in care that they're working with feel heard, feel listened to, feel like they know what's going on? Like, what would have helped you feel all of those things?
I think even like simply engaging with the child more, instead of quite often just only seeing a social worker or some form of professionals when things were either wrong or something was going to change, or, you know, like something big was going to happen. I think keeping regular contact to actually build that relationship and trust with a child sounds so simple, but pretty essential, really.
Oh, so true. If the only time you see someone is when they're giving you bad news,
Yeah.
like, you're going to associate that person.
Or they're coming to tell you off and tell you you're such a bad person.
Yeah.
Or you're such hard work, you know?
And I understand that, like, social workers are super overworked and we desperately need way more social workers than we have. But I agree that, like, relationship is the core of what you need, because if I have a relationship with, like, someone I care about, like, I'll just use my best friend as an example. Like, if she has to tell me something bad, like, hey, this is actually a great thing for you, like, it's hard to hear, but, like, I'm doing it because I really care about you. I believe her because she's there for me for good times as well as bad times. Whereas if social worker is rocking up and they're, like, only there to tell you you're moving or to tell you off, I'm sorry, I'm never going to want to see this person. I'm going to actively run away, and I'm going to actively avoid you, and I'm going to hate you. So I agree, that's a really good thing, like, push for that relationship-based social work practice. I personally sometimes forget that, I don't forget, I think that social workers sometimes forget or are too busy to remember that, like, every decision they make can have a lifelong impact on a child or a person, because I think they're quite busy. Like, what do you think that, in your experience with your social workers, that they maybe just didn't recognize for you or forgot?
Yeah, I think I've had a few social workers that were clearly just there to do their jobs by a piece of paper. And then there were some who were really about actually having that connection and building that trust and not going outside of their contracts. They were sticking to their jobs, but they were actually being human beings.
Yeah.
They were trying to build a relationship with me instead of just saying, I'm here to kind of manage your life for this period. It's so huge. Like, it's amazing how much instability can be caused by not just moving a child around from home to home to home, you know, like different people through different processes, or even the same people, if they are causing more trauma for a child.
So if there's any young people who are listening to this podcast right now, like, do you have a message for any young people who are currently in care?
I guess, like, this is something I wish I could say to my younger self now as well. And it's, you know, to just listen to yourself and really believe in what you want for your life, not what comes from the outside.
Niah Fotu is a Kaiwhakamana based in the Tamariki office. In her role of Kaiwhakamana, she supports many of our young people and hears firsthand how detrimental it is for these rangatahi to not be included in decisions made about them.
So a Kaiwhakamana is an advocate for children and tamariki who are in care or who are care experienced. So we amplify their voices in spaces where they feel unheard. So we're like the adults in the room for them and speak on the issues that they've raised. My experience being a Kaiwhakamana is it's been rewarding in terms of working in that space. It does have its challenges in terms of working with other professionals, but it's actually been quite a rewarding process since I've joined VOYCE. Yeah.
You mentioned it can be challenging working with other professionals. Is that because sometimes, like, social workers or other professionals feel like either a Kaiwhakamana is trying to do a job that they think that they're already doing, or they don't realize that young people have a legal right to a Kaiwhakamana? Like, what do you think that tension is?
Well, based on my experience, it's not the legal right. It's more of just like them just saying, well, we've done this piece of work. We've met with the young person and we've done X, Y, Z. But it's like, no. I don't think you've actually heard the young person. So for them, it's more just like, don't tell me how to suck eggs.
Right, yeah.
You know? to still maintain that professionalism, it's like you're just going to have to say to them like, hey, look, I think there just might be just something that you guys have missed here. Can there just be a time that we can just set aside and me and you can just talk and just for me just to flesh out what the young person has actually said and see if that can be added or something for you guys to look at. Because I think what this young person has raised will really benefit his plan moving forward or her plan moving forward. So like you can have those hard, challenging conversations, but it's doing it in a professional way where it doesn't hinder the relationship moving forward. So it doesn't, so for that young person, so it doesn't cause more of that, that turmoil.
Yeah. Do you come across a lot of tamariki or rangatahi in care who feel like they're not being heard?
Oh yeah, a lot.
Because you, like, even before your time at Voice, I know you've worked in the care sector for a while. Like, was that just, I know, like, my experience being in care and, like, my friends who have been in care, like, their experience, but still to this day, like, young people are still feeling unheard?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, it's still, like, the general consensus. Like, every time, like, in my past role and in my current one now in Voice, that was always like, oh, they never listened to me. And if I go to them about, oh, can I do this or can I do this course, it was always shut down. So their voices were never heard. So that is the main general consensus, which is sad because I feel like they have a right to say what should be included in the next life decisions of theirs and where they need to go or what whānau to go to, or, you know, they have that right to say that. And so people that are professionals that are involved with these young people really need to take that into consideration.
Why do you think they're not being heard, like, or listened to?
Look, it could be just because they're overwhelmed with work themselves, you know, because they've got, you know, they're working with lawyers for children and judges, lay advocates plus us. So I know that they've got their own processes and I know they're fully just too busy. And they don't actually have the time to fully engage with the young people like we do. Like, we have that privilege to actually go and build whanaungatanga and build that relationship and get that rapport. And then that young person can actually tell us things that they don't necessarily feel comfortable to tell their social worker, because let's just say that space hasn't been created yet. And like, I understand from the social worker's point of view that they're just flat out busy. So I can understand that engagement level can be quite hard. They can't maintain it. So we have such a privilege that we do have the time to do that. And so I guess that's why we're able to go into those spaces and share a lot of those things and say, actually, this is what this kid is wanting, because they've built that trust within us to go and share that.
It's actually something Bella mentioned earlier in the episode that she felt she was not listened to, and that she would want social workers to build relationship with young people. So it wasn't just like your social worker is coming to tell you off or tell you that you've done something naughty or that you're moving, but there was like more of a positive association with social workers. And we talked about how like that workload. So I guess they're just overworked and...
Yeah, 100%. I think they are overworked, and I think that's just something that they need to look into. That's probably something that, doesn't fall in our scope, but yeah, I think they really do need to look at the engagement level and spend enough time with their rangatahi, that's for sure.
So speaking of like being a Kaiwhakamana, because obviously Voice has Kaiwhakamana all around the motu, around New Zealand, like what work do you actually do as a Kaiwhakamana? Like some examples of advocacy work that you can do or you have done with young people. We don't need specifics of like young people, but if I was still in care and I'm not sure, like, oh, what does Voice even do? Like, how can they help me? Like, what are some things that you've helped young people with?
So, like, just say, for instance, if, like, any of the kids feel like say they've got, like, a family group conference and there's a certain plan that they didn't feel like was being talked about, then that's where we can come in and just go, hey, is there any supports that you may need in terms of getting your voice or your plan across to the right ears? And then we just kind of explain, like, here we can just talk, you know, we just share it with us and we can come in there and just go, hey, do you guys have a minute to just kind of listen to what this kid is after? We're like the union for our kids. So we can just go in there and represent you and make sure that your voice is actually being heard in those spaces.
Yeah. Kids who are also in youth justice are included in that scope, hey?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that in terms of advocacy with them, it's more just around like, where will they be going to after they get bailed from residence?
Yeah.
So, it's like, can you follow up with my social worker with where I'm going and things like that. So, so that's just more just like making sure that I communicate with the social worker and just make sure that they're communicating with their young people and residents, because there is so many people involved, and that's where it can be a bit tricky. But we just make sure we're just here purely for the young person, and we're just relaying that information.
Yeah. And as a team, I'm assuming that like, obviously you're based in the tamariki team, but like within your team, do you guys have like different specialties?
Yeah, definitely. We're so diverse in our experiences, which is really beneficial to all of us. Like, we can go to one another. Like, say there might be an area that I'm a bit unfamiliar with, then I can just go to my team member and just go, hey, can you just give me some advice on how I can navigate through this space with this young person? So it's really good that we've all got different areas of expertise that we can all just kind of win from.
Oh, that's so nice. If there's young people listening who are like, maybe they've never heard of VOYCE before, or they have a little bit, but they want to get involved, like, or get some help, like, what would you say, like, how would they get in touch with VOYCE?
So there's different, we're all on all the different social media platforms, and then we've also got a free 0800 number, so they can reach out that way, but also they can refer anyone, like they can refer a friend or a family member, and it's just really easy. So once that process comes through, or once they reach out, then someone will collect it, and then they will refer that information to the proper region, to the regional manager of that region.
Yeah, I can give a little bit of insight as well, just for the social media side of things. It's me who, I'm the only person who has access to our socials. And so often I'll maybe get a young person messaging, being like, I need help.
Yeah.
And the process for me is just to kind of get their location and their name, and sometimes how old they are, but mostly like I can tell it's a young person.
Yeah.
And as soon as I've got that information, and their best contact, because some young people actually don't have credit to text people or whatever, or not allowed their phones. So I just get the best contact detail for them as well. And then I screenshot that and I just send that on to the manager of the region.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I assume from there, as far as I'm aware, they then assign that young person to one of
so it gets assigned to the to a Kaiwhakamana, and then that assigned Kaiwhakamana will initiate the first contact, whether it's through sending like an info pack or like a phone call just to introduce ourselves, and then just take it from there. Yeah.
And is the process the same as like they call the 0800 number?
Yep, it's the same process. So say if they ring the duty line, say for instance.
So that's the 0800.
The 0800 number, then they'll ring through, they'll just get all their details, and then that will get flipped to the regional manager of that region, and then it's the same.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
And also I do just want to say, like, we put this on all our stuff as well. Like, if there is an emergency, call 111. Don't call VOYCE.
Yes.
Like, in an emergency, like, our duty person would be like, call the police.
Yeah.
To all of those young people who are listening, who are in care or have been in care, what would you want to say to them?
I would say just to be yourself, be your authentic self, and don't be afraid to speak up for yourself as well. You've got like different agencies like us, but always stay real, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, and just know that there's people out there that can support you and that will have your back, like VOYCE.
If anything in this podcast has raised any issues for you and you need to talk, we recommend reaching out to a trusted friend or adult. Or you can call Youthline on 0800 376 633 to get more support. Or if you're in crisis, please call 111. Remember, there is no shame in asking for help. That's it for this season of Whakarongo. Thank you to the rangatahi who gave their time and shared their stories so we can continue to advocate for change. And thank you for listening. For more information on the 6 Promises for 6,000 campaign, head to voice.org.nz. And remember, that's spelled VOYCE. Ngā mihi nui.